he initially took my kindness for weakness, but he found out very quickly that I was able to stand up and have those hard discussions and to protect the people around me.
All right. I got D'Angelo Johnson here with me on the Inner Journey podcast. I appreciate you being here. He comes from a background of 20 plus years of experience with the financial industry. He's also the owner of Breaking Barriers, and he has 3 kids. And we're just going to dive right into just the ownership and just your experience with Breaking Barriers. So,
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
For sure. It's a pleasure having you on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, let's talk a little bit about your financial experience and how you kind of got into that.
Oh man, that's a long story. I don't know if we got enough for just one episode. But for me, the financial industry has been an absolute godsend, to tell you the truth. This is an area that I thought I actually would never be in growing up. I was a huge basketball fan. I was a huge music fan. And so I always thought that would be my path. However, having a mother who spent 40 plus years in the industry and kind of growing up around a lot of folks in banking and insurance, investments, and the real estate industry, just naturally, I was kind of drawn to that world and took some entrepreneurship classes in high school.
Yeah.
And just having that taste early on of what this world can deliver for you and for your community and the people around you, it really kind of it captivated me, to be honest. And so early on, I would say when my mother, she worked for a bank locally in Iowa, I had an opportunity to do some summer work for that institution.
Okay.
And so that was the first taste into the world of banking. And I had a really great mentor out of that same institution. And so just being around folks that kind of looked like me, someone that looked like me, and coming from where I'm originally from, Gary, Indiana, being able to see this black man, I called him Bow Tie Fly. He had the box haircut, he had the suspenders, he was just very well put together. But he always encouraged me, always talked to me. And then probably a couple of years later, so I did some work behind the scenes for a real estate company. So I kind of did the account payables, receivables. I did that work. And then I actually worked for a small mom and pop company, real estate company back in Indiana, where I'm originally from. And so I had an opportunity for several years to really experience different forms of the industry, from real estate to mortgage to a teller position to just different worlds and different roles in the financial industry.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I remember when when we were both working for the financial industry, and I saw you, we were still kind of like upcoming in our, I worked in information technology, and just seeing you just grow. I grew as well in that company, and I had some mentors that I've met, but just seeing you, just your demeanor and how you were so kind just to, everyone in the organization, and you were just so, well put together. I always saw you kind of wearing a suit, and everyone was like, who's that guy? He has the most nicest suits and just the most nicest guy. That's what you were known for, just one of the most nicest guys in the organization. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You know what? First off, I'm pretty sure I drove you crazy some days.
No, you were actually really one of the nicer ones. I remember when there was someone that wasn't like fixing your issue in a timely manner, and you just came by and you just dropped by and you're like, I'm here to drop off my laptop and just trying to figure out this thing. And it was like, you weren't like upset or like, you know, you were very just like professional about it.
Well, I appreciate that, because I think I was about 8 or 9 laptops in at that moment. And I wish I was kidding, but we were quite a few laptops in. But everyone has a job to do, man.
For sure.
And unfortunately, things happen, and that's the reality of it. Now, I believe at the time the space that I was in, the work that I was doing, it really was time sensitive work. However, frustrating the folks that are trying to fix your issue,
Yeah.
it isn't going to help.
Yeah.
And in the same, then they're going to remember that the next time, you know, something comes up. So that old saying for me, do unto others as you wish they do unto you. And that's real for me.
For
and
sure.
I always try to extend grace and understanding. And that's really, to be honest with you, that's just how I lead in general. That's my approach to every single thing. I try to lead with kindness, and that is very intentional. You know, if you know me, one of the things that I always say to folks is I want to be intentionally different. And a lot of folks may look at that like, oh, this person is trying to be a brown nose, or no, I just really want to be different than everyone else. And the only thing I can control is my attitude. And a part of that is kindness. And so my whole thing about the way that I approach people, I approach business, I approach my children, community, is I lead with kindness. I want to be a kind servant leader. And from there, I can kind of shape how I do things and how I move and how people perceive me.
Wow. That touched me because that's the way I live, and that's pretty touching. That's pretty neat. I'm pretty
Appreciate it.
Hey, that was good.
Thank you.
So, who instilled that in you? Where like that kindness, was that your mother, your father? Like who kind of like
Yeah.
taught you to be? Because there's a okay, so there's a I'm trying to word this properly, because you can be kind, but then you also still have to have a side of you that sometimes people take advantage of your kindness to their advantage.
Yeah.
And I find that, and whether the social media, whomever believes this or watches this, I consider myself very genuine and kind until I see someone is taking advantage or trying to overstep and not take that for granted, and essentially, and not understand that intellectually I'm still smart. You still can't run all over me.
Absolutely.
How do you balance that? So it was a 2-pronged question.
Yeah.
But.
So it's very simple. The first thing is your confidence and your demeanor should really help also kind of paint a picture of who you are and how you interact with others. So, and what I mean by that is, even though I'm kind, I am not a pushover. Even though I'm kind doesn't mean that I can't be bold. Because I'm kind doesn't mean that I don't have a backbone. Because I'm kind doesn't mean that I should be looked at as weak. It is because I am kind, I can be looked at as strong, because I know in every single aspect in what I'm about to say to you, how I've already thought about it, how I expect for you to respond to me, etc. So if in our interaction, I bring something to the table, and I've had this happen to me. I've had, I told you we were going to have a Cat Williams moment up here. I had this happen to me many times because I am very even. I'm just like this. Yeah. But because I am that way, it doesn't mean that I can't close a deal. I can't have a hard conversation. I can't challenge someone. Correct. It just means that I am going to do it differently. I'm going to do it intentionally. And so I've had folks come to me and just, I'll be upfront with you. I've had someone threaten people on my team before. And so for me, this is a part where I'm just going to say it. I'm from the hood, Tyler. So there's a part of me of, I know how I need to respond, and it's not necessarily for that other person always. Yeah. It's for me. Yeah. And so when this individual came to me and threatened the livelihood of someone on my team, this person was a peer, but they were an executive in the company, but they didn't have any control over me in my area, and our area, I should say. And so I listened to this person threaten to fire someone on my team after we had already had a pretty good relationship. We had done all of our checks and balances on our side of making sure whatever this person did on my team was the right move. Yeah. And so my initial reaction was, and I'm sorry, I'm giving you this story.
No, I love it.
But my initial reaction was, I'm sitting across from this man, and my first thought was, I've already choked him 27 times. He don't even know it. He doesn't even know it. However, the professional side of me
Yep.
and my boys have to eat side of me.
For sure.
We're like, you know what? Just sit back and listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like to consider that, you hear a lot of folks talk about emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
to say that was kind of the emotional agility piece where you actually know you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other piece of that with the emotional intelligence is knowing the other person.
For sure.
And so I'm sitting there and I had to just kind of take it for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just processing and I didn't want to do anything to incite the other person,
Mm-hmm.
even though inside I was boiling.
Yep.
So just so you know, the initial conversation with this executive when I first met him was, hey, you can say anything you want to me.
Mm-hmm.
All I ask is for you to do it tactfully. All I ask is for you to come to me and let's have a discussion. You can say anything you want to me. Just say it tactfully, say it discerningly.
Mm-hmm.
But to threaten and to yell and to curse, that's not professional at all.
Correct.
All right. At the end of the day, this isn't our business, but we want to treat it as though it is. So we want to have a certain level of respect for the other person. And so in this instance, I had to go home. I had to breathe a little bit, pray through some things, and I had to come back and see how am I going to approach this situation. Now, I won't go into all the details, but long story short, when I left the company, me and this individual had a conversation, and he said, hey, I appreciate everything that we went through because you challenged me to look at myself and to be better. Wow. And there were some steps along the way where I had to go back to this person and I had to call him out and I had to be a little bit more forceful. And it was one of those scenarios where he initially took my kindness for weakness, but he found out very quickly that I was able to stand up and have those hard discussions and to protect the people around me. And I think once you set that precedent once, the word is going to get around.
Definitely.
This person is not a pushover. Oh, they're kind, but they may just cut you and in a tactful, discerning way.
Definitely.
And so that's really how I paint myself is, hey, I'm kind, but do not take it for weakness. Hey, I'm kind, but we can dance if you want to. So
that's pretty touching.
Yeah.
I mean, the way you explained it, that was pretty neat. As you mentioned, you're from the hood.
Yes.
And,
my mama hates when I say that, by the way. She hates it.
But, I respect that just because, I think from my understanding and just being a minority myself, growing up, I, in the professional world versus growing up as a kid and being an Asian American, when you said certain things, we would fight, right? It wasn't like nowadays, you're not really throwing hands.
Absolutely.
And so, where did you learn, like in terms of professionalism and learning how to speak in the corporate world? I feel like it's something that is a skill that you kind of have to learn as you kind of dip into it. Is that something that your mentor helped you with? Like, because it's not easy navigating that if you don't have somebody to kind of help you and guide you of how you need to present and how you should act. And just like one of the examples and stories that you went through is like how you should speak to somebody if someone is thinking that you're a pushover, because the way that you dealt with that was very strategic, and
absolutely
not a lot of people do that. And it's something that people don't necessarily realize. You can't get away with certain things, if you don't approach it right and come up with a plan.
The most important thing, you got to be authentic. You have to be authentic,
sure.
Man. I believe authenticity is one of those things where it is a practiced kind of skill set. It is a behavior that you have to want to actually own. And I kid you not, I think knowing, again, where I'm from and seeing how many people built into me. So when I think authenticity, I'm going to jump back for a moment. There's this thing that you hear oftentimes with the Black community is code switching, where if you are with you're with your people, you're one way. Or if you are in the corporate setting, you're another way. And to a degree, everyone has to be that way because you have to handle business.
True.
But the whole code switching and being one way around your people, then being another way around corporate folks, I don't actually buy that. I am who I am. And a part of that authenticity is being confident in who you are.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize how much confidence is needed to be authentic. So if I'm around my boys, so I'm around my fam, I am the same way. If I am around the corporate folks, I am the same way. And I believe that is what has helped me. And it is because I've navigated in so many different spaces from a young age. And I don't take that for granted. So when you think about the folks who have been in my life and who have built me up, again, you mentioned the kindness piece. Where did I learn that from? I learned that from my mom. I learned that from my dad. My mom and my dad are both very kind. My mom is a person that will do anything and everything for you. The same with my father. However, there is a piece where with my mother, she will, when we talked about standing up for yourself, she learned how to stand up for herself. That's a part of being authentic. You can be kind, you can stand up authentic. My father, he was a steel worker for 40 plus years, or well, right at 40 years, I should say. And so for him, he did a lot of things in that industry, but then outside of that industry, he focused on the community. He focused on being an imam. He's Muslim, so he's an imam, just equivalent to a pastor. So he teaches, the religious teacher. He did a lot of stuff in the community with interfaith. And so for him, all of those pieces are him. All of that is real. My mom, all those different sides of her, that's real. So I saw my parents use kind of their different personalities and their different skill sets in different rooms. They were just being themselves. They were authentic. They didn't have to switch. My mentors, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, they were themselves. I didn't have to be a certain way around them. They taught me, can you help people? Can you serve people? These are the things that people are going to attract to. So when I'm in a room of folks, I can just be myself. I don't have to go in that room and try to be the smartest person. And hopefully I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'm not always the most vocal in the room. I'm usually the most quiet in the room. And people probably are like at times, why the heck is he here? But I know how to raise my hand and interject if I need to. I don't need to just speak. So I learned that allow people to be who they are. That loud, boisterous person, great. Let them be who they are. What they say in this meeting, I don't need to show them who I am. Let this person who is really smart and intelligent and knows all the numbers in this area, let them be them. I don't need to interject just to try to be seen or be heard. And so when I'm in spaces, I can just be me. And when I have to speak up and I actually have something to say and bring to the table, then I do it. And so for me, I can be authentic and be confident in myself, saying, I don't have to be seen and be heard by everyone. And so no matter the space, corporate or otherwise, I just learned to be confident in who I am. And I never had to worry about code switching or trying to be something that I didn't need to be.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That was pretty touching. Are you involved in the community due to your father being in the community? How have you interjected yourself in the community or be involved? Yeah,
man. So I love to be behind the scenes. That's part of, and it's weird because, you know, as you mentioned at the opening, moving into a space where I own my own consulting company, I haven't even gone like public with this yet. You know, I like to move behind the scenes. If I have a skill set in a certain area and I can help, I'm going to say I can do it. If I can't do it, I'm not going to do it. And so with the community, it's very similar because being behind the scenes, I get to, and being in the financial world, that is where everyone wants to put me because they're like, yo, we need more people like you. Yo, you have to give your expertise here and there. And sometimes I just flat out say no. If I'm on a board and they want me to do something with finances, I say no. And the reason is because that is all I have done.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to utilize other skill sets. I have skill sets where I can help with the governance of an organization.
Okay.
And so I like to jump into that because it's a little bit more detail. It's a little bit more structured on, okay, this is what the organization is going to need for this. This is what these bylaws say. This is X, Y, and Z. And so it's just different than the numbers. But when it comes to the community, I've done everything, man. I've done, grant writing, which was one of my favorite things to do. So I was the director of finance or CFO, however you want to say it. It just varies for an organization. And they worked with victims of domestic abuse and survivors. And it was really cool. And it was called Mothers Against Violence, or MAV. And that organization I worked with from 2014 to 2017. And the grant that I wrote for that organization was the first one ever given to a minority organization in the state of Iowa for that specific work, for what we were doing. And that was huge. And you're talking about several $100,000 out the gate for this organization. And so those are the type of things that I like to do. I love to work with kids. My boys, my most favorite thing on the face of this earth is being a father. Hands down, there is nothing better. There is no greater calling for me on the face of the earth. And so a lot of the things that I do, I work with organizations that support children. So I'm on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Iowa. I am on the board for United Way. I'm on their investment cabinet. I'm on the board for United League, which is an affinity group under United Way. I'm on their economic cabinet, and I've done things in other markets for like Children's Actions Alliance. I've worked with organizations that help with first-time home buyers. I have internally, when I was with the financial institution that I was with here for 16 years, I help first-time home buyers and kind of bridging that gap and education gap. So, I mean, I have done a lot. I do a lot. I don't talk about it often. And which is cool for me. But an opportunity like this, I like to talk about that because my skill sets have allowed me to impact so many people in areas that people don't even realize, like, hey, I had a hand in giving this organization X amount of dollars, and now they're helping the community around them. So it's cool.
I really didn't know how involved you are in the community. That's pretty cool. Now, man. I know. I mean, I've been, for myself, I've really wanted to dip in the game of, I know my reason on being on planet Earth is to serve and help people. And so being in touch with someone that is on the board or like of how to get involved, it's not that easy, you know what I mean, to know who to go to and like be involved in the community. So that's pretty neat. I did not know that about you.
Man, I sit on a lot of committees, a lot of funds, a lot of boards, and it has been an absolute blessing.
That's awesome.
It's crazy because I had someone tell me, they were like, you need to brag on yourself. I'm like, no. And there's nothing wrong. Don't get me wrong. LinkedIn is a very, very great platform.
It is.
For businesses and for the business person. But you see so many people posting what they're doing on LinkedIn. I can't stand social media. I can't. But you know, sometimes I'm like, shoot, maybe I should post on there. Maybe I should brag about myself a little bit. But no, it's cool.
Sometimes if people do it for the right reasons, you don't need to necessarily. It's like, you know, for me at least, when you're helping, you know, nothing against homeless people, but like if you're giving money to a homeless person or you're helping and you're doing what you believe is right, I don't feel like you need that validation from social media to show that, hey, I'm doing something for the community. But I understand of why people do post it on LinkedIn and social media, you know, for certain reasons, but there's a balance, right?
There should be a balance. And I'm not, listen, anyone that's listening to this, I am not hating. I just want to clarify this right now.
But
I get it because it's brand awareness.
It is.
I had a comment that was made to me from a recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
There was a head of an organization who
Mm-hmm.
was looking at me for a role.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the head of this organization goes, "Well, I don't know D'Angelo."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Well, I don't know you." It doesn't, is this like, is it a contest
Yeah.
of like who knows who? And
Yeah.
I just don't operate like that. But I
Yeah.
get it. It is great for brand awareness. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about your journey climbing up the corporate ladder and then being able to figure out what really fulfills D'Angelo. I find it inspirational because I've seen you do it and I've seen you travel and there's a lot of good benefits that you get from working in that industry.
Yeah.
How are you able to transition out of that?
Yeah.
It's pretty neat. So I'm curious to
Man.
hear about that.
It's tough. And I'll be lying to you if I said I didn't know if I'm going to transition back in at times. And it's, when you have, I'm gonna tell you another quick story.
Okay.
When you have security,
Yeah.
it's a different ball game.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a company that treats you as well as mine treated me, it's really difficult. Yeah. But I go back. So at heart, I am an entrepreneur. And growing up, I always knew that I wanted to have some sort of control over my future and what I wanted to do. And I made mention before that I wanted to go into the music industry. And so the story there is, so I had an opportunity to play collegiate basketball for a Division I school. And I chose to walk away from that. And I went to school for audio engineering and production. And so, and I don't have a 4-year degree, but I knew in music that was something that I could control. I had complete control over my mind, over my creativity, over every single thing. No one except for my maker could take my mind away from me. And so, growing up, I thought that was it. That's where I was going. There was no one that, if you find any of my friends from back then, no one around me would have thought any different. They would have been like, yo, he's going to have multiple Grammys. He's going to be worth $100 million by 25. Like that's what they would have told you. That was my mindset. And then I had my first son. Now, over my lifetime, I've been a parent to 5 children. I have three biological boys. But by the age of 19, I was raising my godson. And so for me, that was a changing point in my life. Also, by the age of 19, I had already had my real estate license, my insurance. I was doing debt restructure, working on refinancing. And so I was training individuals, corporate folks. So for me, by 19, I was already all in into my career. And so going back to my mentors, they really helped shape me during that time frame. And it came back to, and when I make this comment earlier, can you help and can you serve? That was what I lived by. The more people I helped, the more people I served, the more successful I will become. And it's very true when you think about the way that business is. The more people you help, the more people you serve, the more money you make. It's really that simple. And so for me, I never focused on really climbing a corporate ladder. But when I had my biological son, my first biological son, it was something in me that switched. And I'll never forget, because I was like, I have to go, and this is twofold. One, I said, okay, I have to make a difference. I want to give him a different lifestyle than what I had growing up. And my lifestyle was not bad. I just want to be very clear about that. But I wanted to give him more. And then 2 for me was, I wanted to be a godly man. I didn't want to just be a good man. I wanted to be a godly man. And what does that look like for me and for my son? And so those 2 things really challenged me. And the thing about the business world, I wanted to make sure he had the health care. I wanted to make sure that I had that consistent paycheck, but I always kept an outside hustle. I was an independent contractor. So within the bank, whatever I didn't do within the bank, I could do externally as long as there was no conflict of interest. Sure. I had to let the HR department know every year, hey, annually, I still have my independent contract going on, so I can help people with insurances, I can help people with debt, I can help them with some of their retirement. And I was not doing that internally at the bank. So I was making just as much, if not more, outside the bank as I was inside the bank. And so that was always my grind. It was nothing I've ever done has been about climbing a corporate ladder. And I have had this conversation with the senior exec at the bank. And at one point I told her multiple times, I said, I don't work for me to climb a corporate ladder. I don't work for me to get a promotion. I work for my boys, and I work to make sure that whatever I'm doing, I am doing it at my best. And if you all see an opportunity for me to grow and you need me to fill in a space somewhere, do it, because I'm adaptable. And that's what growing up, that's what being authentic, that's what being confident in who you are allows you to do and to be. It allows you to be adaptable. Growing up in the hood and then coming to a state that's from 98% black city to a state that was 97, almost 98% white, it allowed me to adapt. Going from a place where I'm from the hood and then going into a corporate space here allowed me to adapt. And again, being authentic allowed that. So for me, that corporate ladder was never the target. Me getting to become a multi-six-figure earner without a college degree was never the goal. It was, can I be better? And so if you talk to my boys, we have a saying, and I'll yell out, practice makes, and they'll say better. And I say, practice makes better. And I'll say, do you want to be good or great? They'll yell out, great. Do you want to be great or legendary? Legendary. And so like, these are the things that I instill in my boys because I never wanted to be better than anybody. And sometimes I did placate myself. I did play small for other people. And my father helped me get out of that really quickly. By the time I was 18, 19, I never played small for anyone else ever again in my life. But when you think about the concept of me being better, it was always to be better for me. Be better for my boys, be better for the people around me, not better than them. So literally every day, I yell that to my boys, even my older ones to this day. Practice makes, and now it's better. You know? But it's real. It's really real. Yeah. And that is how I believe I continue to move and grow within any organization. It's because I don't wait for people to build into me. I build into myself. I can't have the mindset, be better, but I don't do anything and I wait for other people. Or I have to run to someone else and say, hey, this will help make me better. Can you build into me? No. Do it yourself. Stand up for yourself. Be better for yourself. And I think that's been I think that's something that a lot of folks, and I wish a lot of younger folks understood. You can develop so many skill sets just by learning yourself. Because once you're out of school, once you say, for instance, you go get that 4-year degree. Say, for instance, I got a 4-year degree 20 plus years ago. That was 20 plus years ago. I still have to grow today. So why would I stop myself from growing every single day? And so that's what has helped me really get and move up that corporate ladder, as you say.
Yeah, that's so touching because when you talk about authenticity, I never really thought about it that way. So for me, when I was working I still am working in the technology industry, it was just a combination of being a student, right? And being able to work hard. So those two combinations, and not, just like you said, I had no intentions of climbing the corporate ladder, but doors just like, as I just keep networking and working hard, and just doors just kept opening, but I knew where I wanted to stop. Right? Like I knew I kept going and going, and I was like, I don't ever want to be a director or a C executive level, because you realize, the more that you do climb, there's more responsibilities and
Yeah.
stress, and you have to be kind of like a public.
Yeah.
You have to be in the face of the public, and you have to be able to present and be on top of it when they ask you questions,
Yeah.
especially if it's in front of a board or if it's in front of like, you really have to be on top of it. And so like, I really didn't think about it that way in terms of authenticity. That really touches me, at least.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize that.
And I'll tell you this. I don't mind, and I actually would truly love to be in a position of a CEO, a president, that executive vice president space. And I actually turned down a role for an executive vice president because of some of the work that was needed. I knew I wouldn't deliver my best.
Gotcha.
Not that I couldn't learn the role, but I knew what they were needing. I would have felt like a fraud.
Oh, gotcha.
And I tell you, the reason I want to be a president and CEO, I had someone make a comment to me once, and it was someone that didn't know me well, and they were like, well, you have this thirst and this desire for power and authority. And I said, oh, okay. All right, great. And they were saying it in a bad way. I don't think there's anything wrong with power and authority when you have the right heart, when you have the right temperament. Every organization has a political climate. And whether people want to believe it or not, it exists. The difference is how do you present yourself and how do you want to make a change?
Yes.
So I completed an executive leadership course through Drake University.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my corporate statement, we all had to create this corporate statement or this, how would you want people to know you and recognize you? Yeah. And my corporate statement was, I am known as a kind servant leader who encourages change from the corporate norm for the better. And the reason I have that is because earlier on when I mentioned to you, I am intentionally different. I know there's a political climate. People don't talk about that political climate. And that is something that is doing a disservice to so many folks. I've either been in organizations, been a part of organizations, or seeing friends, families be a part of organizations where people get to that level you're talking about, and they're not going to move. And people within that organization may know that, but they're too afraid to challenge, too afraid to actually speak up and have that hard discussion to either challenge someone to change to be better or go somewhere else. So the organization as a whole can be better and be more efficient. And I'll never understand why executives who sit on executive boards and committees with one another are afraid to encourage and challenge each other for the better. It doesn't make sense. So for me, when you mentioned getting to a certain spot and I'm sitting there and I'm like, hey, can we speak up? Can we be bold? There's a political climate here that's hurting the organization at some point. We're growing because we see the numbers and we have to, but we can be so much better. And that is the part for me where I'm like, I don't want to dance at this level if I can't really make a change. So I would love to be in a space of a CEO, of a president. There's a lot of growth that needs to happen there. That you cannot learn until you're actually in that space. There's only so much preparation you can have, so many executive coaches, so many life lessons that you can actually have until you're in that space and you're walking that. But for me, if I'm ever in that space and I have the opportunity, it is to have that trickle down effect of, oh no, we are doing things differently. And if you can't get on board with that, then you're going to have to jump off board. Because there needs to be a change in climate in the political landscape of business.
I agree 1,000%.
Especially conservative businesses.
For sure. And, I don't know if your views on this is the same, but for me, it's very far and few of finding leaders that don't have their own agenda for their personal growth. I was so blessed to have a mentor, and still to this day, we have an amazing friendship, is being able to, he was able to, find everyone's kind of like niche of what they're strong in and what they're weak in, and able to utilize every single person and have them grow in their own way. And that was special for me because as I move from, different organizations, you don't always get that. It's a special thing,
It
and
is.
you don't know, it's a rarity to come by. And
It
so like,
is.
I don't know if you believe the same thing
Yeah.
in terms of leadership. You know
No,
what I mean?
I absolutely do.
Yeah.
And that's just absolutely spot on. Leadership makes or breaks.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
for me, I think great leaders have a sense of pride, but for other folks.
Yes.
They
Yes.
have a sense of pride in, if my people win, I'm all good.
Yep.
And it's a humbling thing. And I will say that again, that's a way that I intentionally am different. And I'll sit down. You can ask anyone that I've ever led, anyone I've ever coached, anyone who knows me. I'll sit down and I'll ask you, and I'll say to you, hey, I have zero pride in this. I have zero pride in this, except for making sure I get it done for you, whatever you need. If you win, I have the greatest sense of pride.
That's awesome.
And what is it that's gonna take to help you get to where you need to be? And there's other things that I say. I'm going to be giving a keynote here in a few months, and I go in depth about some things that I say up front when I'm going into a different market, and not just within the bank that I worked for. I've been in different markets multiple times. I've built different markets up, and that's something that the institution that I worked for, they actually didn't know that piece. I never talked about it. But from day one, those same questions that I asked from an 18-year-old when I was in management are the same questions that I ask now as a 30-plus-year-old.
Yeah.
And it's been great because it tells me that people are who they are. They want to be valued.
Yeah.
They want to be heard.
Yeah.
They want to have a sense of safety. And once you have that, man, as a leader, once you have people's heart and you have their mind and they know that you're there for them, and you just move in sync.
Yeah.
And that type of leadership is very difficult to find, where people are like, hey, everybody on my team is better than me. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I welcome that, please.
Yeah.
And it's just like, as a parent, like, you want your children to be better. I don't need to live through my children. I want my children to be 10 times better than me.
For sure.
You know what I mean? I want my teams to be 10 times better than me in every single area.